Hi everybody and welcome to another movie about Flowable. Now I was in the Zurich office today and I thought it was a great idea to sit together with Filip Hrisafov and talk about a sneak peek feature that's coming up in the next cloud release, right? And it's about scripting. One of the hardest problems in a cloud environment is how to do secure scripting, right? What does that mean, secure scripting, Filip?
Yeah, thanks, Joram. Yeah, so basically, we have with the scripting you can do a lot of things, right? So you
a lot
can,
of bad things too,
a lot
right?
of bad things. You can write like an infinite loop, basically, like while through that just keeps on running in a loop. You can access system resources. You can access maybe all the beans, the ones that you should have and you should not have, and things like this. So that's one of the problems. All other problems are you can even access data from other tenants, basically,
that
right?
Really
and
bad.
that's really bad,
that
right? From
really
a secure aspect point of view, that's a really bad thing, right?
Yeah.
And it also can affect the execution of your entire runtime for all your tenants. So not just your script, but also all the other scripts that the other users are running, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it would be the first thing that I would try if I go to a new service.
Exactly,
try to break
try
it
it out, right?
Exactly. So how do we solve this?
So how do we solve this? So what we did, basically, we are doing remote scripting. So what this means is, so here we can see, so we have here our Flowable Work application, right, which is running with some tenant management application. And the remote scripting, so we call it remote scripting, is because it's running actually in Azure Functions.
Now, assuming that I don't know an Azure function. What is an Azure function?
Yeah. So an Azure function basically is something that can spin up really fast, execute certain things, and then finish running, right?
Yeah.
And for this, what we're basically doing is we have let's call it like a remote, like a script executor, basically.
Yeah.
Which is deployed as a Graal VM native application. So that means it has a really fast boot up time. So I think it's around, I don't know, like 200 milliseconds, or maybe even, I think it's even less than 100 milliseconds.
I think we made a movie quite a while ago.
But that was a whole Flowable application.
Talking about Graal native and serverless, because in the end, an Azure function fits within this whole serverless idea, right? Okay, so we're using that to fast boot up something.
Exactly, to fast boot up, basically. And what we have here, every single tenant has its own deployment of it. So every single tenant has its own, it's fully isolated. So that means that when Azure functions are running, they would not interact with each other, right? And to see how this communicates with each other, so here we can see basically, so we have a tenant management application. Whenever a tenant gets created, we deploy in Azure itself, like a fully isolated tenant executor. And then Flowable Work, when it needs to execute this remote script, is going to get the location, basically where is this located, and then over REST is going to call the function. The first call could be a bit slower.
Depends on your usage.
Right? But the first, let's say if everything is cold, it will be a bit slower. So it will take around, I think it takes around 500 milliseconds, the whole thing.
It's not,
It's
not
but then
crazy.
And then if you have multiple functions after that, then it's like super fast.
I mean, the idea is that these cases, you will run them by the thousands, right?
Millions,
probably,
exactly.
right? And then this thing will keep running. No, that's super useful. Now, this gives you, I would say, data isolation, right? Because actually your script is running fully independent from your Flowable Work. It would also mean that I can't, when I was a bit younger, I used to do a lot of kind of these PHP kind of shared server kind of things. And there, if you would, do something intensive, you could bring down the whole server for everybody else, right? So that's also avoided, I guess.
That's also avoided, and one of the other things is that you can try to write whole loops, like route through, for example. There is a limit, basically, how long your script can execute, and we have a hard limit on that. But basically, if you go above this limit, the script stops executing and returns back to control.
And it's a physical different machine in the end, right?
It's a fully different machine than where work is running.
So in theory, not in theory, in practice.
In practice, it is fully.
You can't access anything on the Azure function into Flowable from
No,
Flowable,
you cannot. So you can only access the data that we allow you to access, the data that you pass to the function.
Exactly. Now that's all nice. There's a nice diagram, but I like real stuff. So can we try this out for real now?
Yeah. All right. So let's go now here in design and have a look at what we can do with this, right? So here we have like a really simple, I've created like a sales orders process.
It's the classic BPM demo, right?
The classic BPM demo. It's indeed. Where this has a start form where we're going to collect our sales orders, and here we will see basically one sales order. One sales order has an item, amount of items, and price per item. And what we're going to do, we're going to showcase two things. So one is basically we'll have two different functions. So one is the validate of orders, where basically we get orders, make sure that we have orders there.
Okay.
If not, we throw some exception that the user will see, and then we will say, okay, there has to be 2 orders, right? Throw another exception. And then just to make it fun, let's see what happens if we add this while true, and then we'll go through the other part of the script, right? So let's get this and let's publish this to our application.
Right. So you're now in the cloud, right?
So now we are all in the cloud. Yeah. This is running in cloud, it's not running locally on my machine or anything like that, indeed. So let's now run this sales orders process and add some. So let's first try. So if I don't add anything, here.
That's your first one that kicks in, the first script.
Yes.
So this is actually now going through REST call through Azure function and getting back to you.
Yeah. Cool. So it's like on a fully different machine, right? And you saw it's actually quite fast because I was actually testing it, and that's why it's really fast here.
Yeah.
And then let's say, so let's do some like marketing material socks. We have 4 socks, each one is 10.
Yeah.
And then we have hoodies. So okay, let's first try. So if we
I mean, the data doesn't really matter here.
Yeah, but if we have only so this is the second one, right? So just so you can see, hoodie, and then we have 5 hoodies. Each one is 40, for example, right? And when we submit this, and now you'll see it takes a while, right?
Right.
Because I added a while true loop.
True.
Right. So now it will take 10 seconds actually, because that's
your timeout. Basically.
That's the timeout, and here you can actually see.
Okay.
So that it's the maximum allowed time is 10.
But at no point like Flowable work was impacted by.
No, Flowable work was basically just waiting for the response and. Due to the way that our REST calls are done, basically,
but it was normally if you do a while loop, it's going to block your machine, right?
It doesn't do any CPU basically, just waiting on I/O on the get back there.
Awesome. Yeah.
And if we now get rid of that, so just to see what you can do. So here, for example, we are going to compute the total price, and here we have all the sales orders. We go through all the orders and we get the price per item. Plus the amount of items.
And just calculate something.
And then we add this.
I mean, it's a simple script.
Indeed.
I've seen customers using scripting for, quite big things. Not saying it's a good idea always, but, you can do it
if you want to. And the good thing is also here, we have to
I was going to ask, like, how did you copy all the variables into that, or how does it work? Because that would also not be smart, right?
No, because if we keep sending all the variables, I mean, this is a simple one. There is only one variable, but we have customers that have like 50, 100 variables. And like, where's the network traffic and all those things.
And you also don't want to send everything to that server, right?
It also makes it slower because you have to serialize all that in bytes, send that over the wire, deserialize it.
No, it's good. I mean, you have to say sales orders, that's the one I'm interested in. That's clean.
Exactly, right? So let's save this now and publish it. So once we publish that, so let's go now to the other one. So here we have sales orders. So add 2 ones. So here we have our socks. We want 5 socks, let's say 10 each. Hoodie for 50. So now this is going to calculate our total. So here we can see the 250. And you saw how fast it was actually, right? So awesome. If like when you have all the processes, you're barely going to notice. Of course. And I think the slowest is basically just a round trip thing.
And I think also on the Azure function, the serverless side of things, you can also configure certain things like how much do you want, how many instances do you want, how many kind of memory. There's a lot of configuration.
We can do that.
Exactly.
Indeed. Because this is not something that you, the customers, but for us, we need to see how we can allow this to customers.
No, awesome. I think that kind of covers what I wanted to get out of this conversation. I think it's a really cool feature. It's something, I mean, people use a lot of scripting, we know that, right? But doing scripting on the cloud is technically quite a challenging problem that we've solved, I think, really nicely, really cleanly. And you see how it looks like. It really works just as you would be running on-prem, right?
And we really wanted to have this, offer this to our customers, right? Because not having scripting is a bit of like a weak story, so we wanted to make sure that the story is quite good here.
There we go. So, sneak peek for the upcoming cloud release. So thank you, Filip.
And, thank you as well.
Thank you for watching and hope to see you soon. Bye.
Bye.